Hello and welcome to another Breakthrough Assault unboxing video. I'm Lee Parnell and I'm recording from somewhere in the south of England. And tonight we're going to be taking a look at the VDV. Red Dawn, The Invasion of America is the latest sourcebook for the World War III Team Yankee universe produced by Battlefront. The invasion consists of amphibious assaults and airborne invasions of both the western Canadian seaboard and the Texas coastline via the Gulf of Mexico. As such, a big component of the actual book are the Soviet Airborne Forces, VDV, who are also joined by Soviet ground forces in the form of the T-72B and T-64BV, and also Cuban forces. The BMD Air Assault Battalion starter set has been released to coincide with this new book, and allows us to build a mid-sized BMD Air Assault Battalion formation, with some supporting elements from Heinz and T-64BVs, a new kit also introduced in the book. Battlefront were kind enough to send me one of the new starter sets, so let's open it up and take a look inside. As you can see, it's quite a large box we got to deal with today, and it's jammed full of contents. First up, we get our standard copy of the mini rulebook. This is the latest version 2 standard. We also get a big bundle of cards and transfers. We'll take a look at the cards first. We get quite a broad range of cards. I was actually pleasantly surprised by the contents. Not only do we get the cards you suspect from looking at the front, so HQ, BMD 1 and BMD 2 variants of the standard VDV force, plus a T-64 BV in the hind. We also get cards for the un-up-armoured T-64. We also get cards for the free BTR variants rather than just the AA 2D version. We also get CD version. We also get the anti-tank 2D version and the standard transport RD version. So if you were to buy the actual weapons team to add to one of your infantry, you already have transports for at least a few of those teams to go in. We also get the cards for the Afghanistan variant of the BMD Air Assault Company. These are the hit-on-4s, fearless veteran version of the standard Afghanistan, and basically being a company-sized force rather than a battalion-sized force. And we can build pretty much 2, maybe 3 platoons of those using the bits we get in the box. Continuing on, next thing we get is the Get Started booklet. This covers all our basic build instructions, but also gives some background on the force. We get all the options for building BMD 1 and 2, the various options for the BTRD, and also the instructions on how to build a hind. Right, on to the fun bit. Let's take a look at the miniatures inside. It's packed so much with miniatures it actually was quite difficult to get them all out in a nice smooth movement, so I didn't. First up, let's look at the BMD Airborne Infantry Fighting Vehicle. Now we can see from the sprue here that it's quite a compact little beastie. It's a lot smaller than the BMP, for example. And the sprue contains the options for both the BMD-1, which was armed with a 73mm cannon and 83 Saga, and the BMD-2, which, much like a BMP-2, is armed with 30mm autocannon backed up with the 85 Spandrel. Okay, next up is the T-64BV. You can see here it's upgraded sprue. We get 3 of these in the box set. So you get 3 bottom holes and 3 upgrade sprues. The upgrade sprue includes all the parts for the turret, so complete replacement turret effectively apart from the main gun. We get a bottom and a top, which both have the era blocks incorporated. There's also an additional piece which fills in the blank on the roof effectively of the extra plates and the gunner sight. There's also a revised grenade launcher that attaches to the side, as well as a new snorkel which is very much like the T-80 setup, and this is a single piece. We also get a era block set for the whole front and also replacement side skirts. The final model are the 2 Mi-24 Hinds. These are the standard Team Yankee ones and should be familiar to most Russian players. Okay, that's all the plastic kits out. Now, unusually for a starter set, we get to a bunch of metal and resin models. We get 3 little plastic boxes. And it's a bubble wrap. Oh, the bubble wrap. Give it to the girls later. I'll keep them going for hours. Anyway, back to the contents of the box. We get 2 blisters containing the infantry companies for the BMDs. We get the 2022 Team Yankee objective. We get a little plastic bag with the Special Formation Command. And we get a plastic container with the BTRD units in. Let's take a look at the objective and the Special Formation Commander first. The objective is the 2022 Team Yankee national objective. It's a BMD with some great coated Russian infantry next to it, stood next to a definitely not McDonald's restaurant sign. It's based on a very iconic screenshot from the Red Dawn movie. It's been hard to get hold of this in the UK because there hasn't been much in the way of Team Yankee tournaments, so it's quite nice to have this. But I do understand that some of the colonials are a bit annoyed about the fact that what was meant to be a tournament exclusive is in the starter set. The Formation Commander is interesting, again based on 3 of the characters, I believe, or certainly 2 of the characters from Red Dawn, the Cuban paratroop commander and the sort of pompous Russian officer. It makes for quite a nice Formation Commander because the actual VDV, as we'll see in a minute, really only has 1 officer figure, so it gives a bit of variety. Each blister contains 1 VDV company, but when I say company, it's really a platoon with a company HQ plus a battalion HQ, so we get a few spare figures for those. Each squad consists of an AK team and an RPG team. This is probably slightly bigger than the real life ones were because you can only really get 5 guys into a BMD, so the RPG tends to be a bit more integrated than, say, a BMP squad would be. But for the purposes of Team Yankee, it works well enough. Obviously, you can use these as a standard BMD VDV unit, or you can use them as for, say, Afghanistan ones, which basically only have 3 AK teams and 3 RPG teams, but are, like, say, hit on 4s, so a bit more harder hitting. Effectively, you don't have the company HQ because that is your Formation Commander at that point. The figures are nice. They all come in wearing berets, which, yeah, I guess it makes them look different to a standard Russian unit, which is fair enough. They're all modelled wearing a sort of the camo onesies as well, which is cool, which is good to see. Obviously, all armed RPGs, and we get an RPK gunner as well for each unit as well. No AKSUs I can remember. I think they're all used in full-size AK-47s, which I guess is correct, because obviously they're coming down with the BMDs. Yeah, only thing I did note was there only seems to be 1 real officer figure. As you can see, the Formation Commander and the Company HQ are both the same figure. There's a couple poses of the NCOs though. You get 2 poses of the RPK and 2 poses of the RPG as well. There's no dedicated RPG loader or RPK assistant gunner, which I guess is just down to resources. He's getting the figure sculptor time to do all that. Would be nice, but hey. All in all, the figures are actually pretty good. I wish there was a few guys just wearing helmets that wasn't quite so beret dominated, but they're clearly going for an aesthetic here. Last but by no means least is the BTRD transport. Now, this was an APC based on the BMD chassis. Effectively, it's stretched with an extra row wheel, and this allows it to carry more personnel internally, as well as by the fact it doesn't have to worry about carrying a turret. Not only was this used as an APC, but also they used it as a host for a whole bunch of different variants. And surprisingly, it was a nice surprise. The actual box set only comes with the actual BTRZD AA version, which is shown in the front, but also all the bits for the other 2 variants, the actual APC variant and the BTR-RD anti-tank variant. First at the BTR-ZD, the Z in this is basically for the ZSU, ZSU 23-2, which is a twin-barreled, manually tracked autocannon. It's normally used on a ground tripod, which has a very funky folding up wheels, and that's literally as is depicted in the actual kit. and it's quite literally just front top of the APC, and it appears to be like held in place by ratchet straps or other variations. When fitted, it appears to block most of crew egress, which doesn't seem like a terribly great idea unless you could try and go out for the commander's hatch at the front. It does seem to have some variation where it sits in real life. Sometimes it seems to be further back, allowing the front hatch to be obscured. Sometimes it's further forward, allowing the large rear hatch to be obscured. And some of it photos do actually have exactly a place that Battlefront show it. So it's definitely not a problem with the kit. It just seems to be the Russians have different priorities. So also, not only do you have this 23mm on the top, you also have all the mountings internally for carrying the SA-14 manpad plus reloads. The idea being that when it's in gun range, you use 23mm. If it's a spot target or at longer range, then you use the manpad. There'll be obviously a guy dismounted with it at the ready. It can be quite cool to actually have this on the base and have it with a spare SA-14 team next to it to allow for show up those different modes off. I just kind of like the idea of just having the actual ground mount on its own for other forces. Now this SU-23 actually effectively exists, they could probably use it for other things, which is quite nice. The next variant is for dedicated anti-tank version, the BTR-RD. This basically has a firing post externally for the 85 spandrel, and internally it carries extra reloads to the missile. It's basically filling the same role as the spandrel wheeled vehicle does in most other Russian forces, and it gives a dedicated anti-tank vehicle. Bit of a weird one, because obviously most IFVs come with extra anti-tank missiles, but if you're doing a pure VDV force with no sort of tanks coming to the rescue, it might be handy to have a dedicated anti-tank unit. And it's a relatively cheap unit to fit in. The final variant is just a pure transport, the BTRD. This comes with two attachments. The PKM machine gun goes on one side, and the AGS-17 grenade launcher goes on the other side. The AGS just gives a little bit extra fire. It's no different to a machine gun really, rate of fire free, but a slightly higher anti-tank, which can be quite handy. So it's quite nice that all these variants are in there. You could probably, with a little bit of careful pinning them out, make it one kit do different variants. One thing to note is the tracks. Although the hull is your standard resin and the ZSU base and barrel and crew are metal, the ZSU mount itself is the same sort of grey resin as the actual general resin tanks are, and the tracks are the newer plastic. I forget what they call it, but like soft plastic. I was briefly worried because when I opened it up, the tracks had although nicely detailed and crisp in detail, did have a warp to them. But because they're soft, it's relatively easy just to put a bit of super glue on the hull, affix the tracks with and then clamp them in place, and that cures the warp. And so far, so good in terms of holding it in place. So I had some trepidation when they said it was a resin model. I'm still not quite sure why they couldn't have a plastic kit that had the upper for the BTRD and the upper for the Nona, which is also based on the BTRD chassis. Maybe they're more different than I think. Could be a case. I must admit, I'm not an expert when it comes to these Russian. Well, not an expert on anything really. It isn't a fighter jet. But yeah, it's still. I haven't seen the model and haven't actually put it together. My main concerns are gone. It's clearly not just a hand sculpt. It's based on at least what looks like the tracks a CAD model resin kind of file. So maybe Battlefront a transition to CAD sculpted resin, which would be a welcome introduction. I think that's the last of the model. So time for the final thoughts on the box set. Effectively, you're getting a 43.4s, depending on how you build it. Probably a bit more with the RPG-7 VRs. You're getting that for £95. Now, most of the other starters generally come in at about £70, and they'll get you about 100.4s. So bang for bucks is a bit lower here, but obviously with the amount of resin and metal figures we're getting, that is going to change the sort of economy of the actual box set itself. I know a lot of people prefer the actual metal miniatures over plastics. I'll be fair, their newer plastics are sort of improving all the time. I think they've come a long way from what they used to be. But yeah, metal is always nice to see, but it is going to push that price point up. The new figures are really good. I like the BMD. I like the fact, like the BMP, you get both turrets, so you not make a compromise between the one or the two, depending where you want to be cheap or effective. I like the fact, again, T64 BV is in the set. You're kind of running out of things you could add into the set to keep it VDV themed, so why not put the new tank in? The objective marker, again, it's nice to see. I was interested that on the last interview with Pete, he mentioned that effectively putting the blister in is in place of 2 tanks. I think I would prefer the extra 2 tanks. If you said there was 5 T64 BVs in there, that'd been quite nice. But it is an objective, and I've been trying to get hold of that one for a while, so I guess personally it is good to have an objective. Some of the extra formation commander is really nice. I quite like the actual Red Dawn tie-in continues. There's plenty of scope for where you can go from here. I was doing some sums. I worked out if you bought 2 of these box sets and then 2 of the Nona mortar gun vehicle boxes, you actually get a fairly decent 100-point force with, like I say, 2 medium-sized companies of infantry, a platoon of BTR ZDs for anti-aircraft, a platoon of BTR RDs for anti-tank, because obviously all the bits are included to build them up that way. You'd then have a 6-gun battery of Nonas, which obviously means you're re-rolling misses on the artillery bombardment. Or you got 6 anti-tank 20 direct fire shots if you really need it. And also you have a 4-strong hind unit and 6 T64 BVs with the Songster missile. There's plenty of scope there. Like I say, or you can just use this as an additional formation backing up some cheaper tanks. There's plenty of scope here for where you could take it. Certainly, if you're waiting for the VDV, it's a really good way of starting this. Buy this and buy the extra bits. Some more BTRDs, some more infantry, a bulk for the infantry out. Some Nonas, because the Nonas are awesome, and why wouldn't you? Yeah, I mean, obviously, you got the hit model coming out soon as well, which is do some air assaults. I've got a commission I've got to paint next, so it's going to be a while before I actually get around to painting these, but I do want to try and get them done so we can do some air assault missions. I want to try and do a big parachute drop and have all these guys coming out the back of an AN-22 and try to take a bridge or something, because that's just what airborne troops really are there for. Flying in, taking an objective, and then dying horribly because the actual ground support can't get to you. But yeah, that's my thoughts. As always, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and leave the comments below. And yes, I know I said AK-47 when I meant AK-74. Sue me. Good night, have fun, and obviously, as always, leave your thoughts in the comments below. If you really like what we're doing here, then obviously the Shooting Scoop podcast I'm normally on, we have a Patreon, and that's linked below as well. Alright, bye.